Welcome to the Promotion and Relegation Show. Week 12 has wrapped up and we have already decided some division winners as well as teams that did not live up to their tier level and will be relegated to a level below. We still have some battles that need to be resolved as well in both promotion battles and relegation battles. The season is wrapping up and we are here to give you the wrap up of what happened this week and what changes are happening in the football pyramid. Let's get this thing going by starting out with the Tier 1 conferences starting in the West. In the Pac-12, we saw that Arizona State were the clear favorite of the team that was going to be relegated. Well, that has come to fruition after they lost to Utah this week, putting them out of reach of Arizona. Arizona State will find themselves moving down to Tier 2 and into the Mountain West. Now, moving into the Coastal Division, we are still looking at a 3-team battle for the division. Those teams are still going to be Oregon, Second Haven, and Kansas State. Oregon did what they needed to do and didn't go 0-2 against the contenders by beating Second Haven this week, which will put them in their familiar first place spot. They now have a 1-1 record against both of these teams now. Right now, Oregon is sitting at the favorite to win the division and will finish their season by facing Arizona and then Oregon State. If they do end up winning the division, this would be their third straight. Second Haven and Kansas State still have to play each other later in the season, and at this point, that game is looking to be an elimination game for these two strong teams. Now moving to the Pacific Division, this division is still wide open. We are still waiting on that USC and UCLA game in Week 14 to really nail down what this division will look like. All USC has to do is win, and they will be safe and win their third division title in a row. If USC were to lose, this could cause a very super chaotic situation, but we will have to see if that even happens because Washington, Utah, and Farmington still have to win their games to stay in the hunt. Washington finishes with Arizona State this week and are most likely to win that and stay in the hunt. Utah and Farmington are going to be facing off against each other, which is going to make this an elimination game for the loser. We could see a 4-way tie for the division title or a 3-way tie. We will have to see what happens this week to see if Washington is still in it or if Utah or Farmington are still waiting for USC to slip up. Now we get to move to the Central region and the Big 12. Last week there were still too many games to be played to decide who was in relegation danger. However, that has now been decided that the previous favored teams to be in a relegation battle are at the bottom, being Arkansas and TCU. Arkansas lost to Wisconsin this week, which knocks them to the bottom. They only have one game to go, which is going to be against LSU. TCU was Arkansas's only win in conference this season, which keeps them in the relegation battle. However, one single win in their last 2 games will keep TCU safe. They will be finishing off with Iowa State and then number 22 Wisconsin, the team promoted last season. Arkansas is currently the heavy favorite to finish at the bottom and in the relegation spot with their remaining game and TCU's remaining games. Now moving to the Central Division. Last week there were 3 teams that could win the division, but now there is only one. Texas A&M beat Texas this week, which is going to give them the division title, being too far ahead. This is their second division title in a row, and they are still waiting to see who their opponent is going to be for the championship from the Gulf Division. Oklahoma held all the cards and were the clear favorite to win this division, but now it's anybody's game. Oklahoma lost to TCU this week, opening the game back up for the division. The teams that are now smelling blood in the water are LSU, Iowa State, Missouri, and TCU. Like I said, this division is wide open with that TCU upset. Oklahoma will finish with Missouri and Iowa State. A win in this upcoming week will eliminate Missouri, but it won't eliminate Iowa State yet. Oklahoma has already beaten LSU, so they still have a leg up on them. LSU finishes with Arkansas. LSU needs a lot of help because of that loss to Oklahoma. They need to win this game to stay alive and will either need a chaotic tiebreaker situation or Oklahoma to lose out in order to win the division. The next team in line is Iowa State. They finish with TCU and then Oklahoma. In terms of tiebreakers, they have lost to LSU, but have just beaten Missouri this week. Missouri only has Oklahoma left. That is a must win for Missouri to stay alive. TCU's win this week mathematically keeps them in the hunt for the division title, even while still being in a relegation battle. However, they have already lost to everyone still alive other than Oklahoma, so realistically, they're out of the running. What a week, though, TCU has caused. Let's go further east now and visit the Southeast Region's Tier 1 Conference, the SEC. The teams still sitting at the bottom from last week are Louisville, Tennessee, and Florida State. They are the only teams that are in this relegation battle, with Louisville being the current favorite to get that spot. Tennessee should now be safe because the only way they were able to go down is if both Florida State and Louisville won 3 conference games, because Tennessee's 2 wins were against both of them. Louisville lost to Clemson this week, so the best they can do is tie with Tennessee, which Tennessee holds the tiebreaker for. Louisville is now in a battle with Florida State, where they will not play each other this year. Louisville has to win their last game to just stay alive anyways. But this is going to be a tough task because they will be finishing with number 8 North Carolina this week. But with a win, they will still need Florida State to lose out. Florida State is going to finish with Auburn and then number 12 Florida. So it could be possible that Florida State loses out. Just win, though, will keep Florida State safe, forcing Louisville to be relegated to Tier 2 and the American Conference. In the East Division, only Georgia and North Carolina are the teams that can win the division. Last week we had these two and Georgia Tech. However, with Georgia beating Auburn this week, that knocked Georgia Tech out of the running. Even with a loss, Georgia Tech would still be out of the running since they also lost this week to North Carolina. Georgia now finishes with Clemson and then their rivals Georgia Tech. Just one win is going to give them the division title and steal that from North Carolina. North Carolina is still fighting for their division title because they have already beaten Georgia earlier in the season. North Carolina has 1 game left in conference, which is against the relegation favorite, Louisville. They must win this game and are going to need Georgia to lose the rest of theirs. If that scenario happens, then North Carolina repeats as division champs for the 3rd year in a row. Unlikely, but it could happen. The South Division is still looking the same as last week with no real changes. Alabama are now playing for their division title lives, finishing with Florida and Auburn in these final weeks. Miami finished with Wake Forest in week 14. 1 loss by Alabama and they are out, having lost to Miami already this season. So now for the final Tier 1 conference, the ACC, out of the Northeast region. Just like last week, the relegation battle is still incredibly difficult to predict. Realistically, it is down to 4 teams: Michigan State, Boston College, Pittsburgh, and Maryland. Even with 2 games to go, it is still tough to decide who are the teams in the most danger. Michigan State lost to Boston College, but they're also not going to be playing against Pitt or Maryland this year, which makes a tie-breaking scenario really tough to determine at this point. Boston College does play Pitt and Maryland and will be finishing against them in these final weeks. So now for the divisions in this conference. The winners have already been decided and the conference championship game is set. The winner of the Atlantic Division is, to no one's surprise, Ohio State for the 3rd year in a row. They beat Notre Dame this week, winning the division for them. And the winner for the Coastal Division is going to be Michigan after they beat Syracuse this week. This will send them back to the conference championship game after missing out on it last year. These two will play each other in week 14, and then they get a week off, and then we'll play each other for the conference title. So that'll be it for the Tier 1 conferences. So now let's jump right into the Tier 2 conferences, starting out west with the Mountain West. Last week, we briefly talked about BYU's double relegation danger. They are still in that danger. There is a 3-team battle to avoid the bottom of the conference with San Jose State, BYU, and San Diego State. BYU beat San Diego State, but they've lost to San Jose State. Those two are going to be playing against each other this week. The winner of this game is going to be safe from relegation. San Diego State needs 3 wins to get ahead of BYU, and San Jose State just needs 2. Both will be able to get that in this game. If San Diego State does win, then BYU would need San Jose State to lose the rest of their games, which are going to be against Billings and then California. The promotion battle is starting to shape out. The teams that are still eligible for promotion are Stanford, Cal, Boise State, and surprisingly Billings. Stanford's only loss was to Billings so far. This makes Utah State, Washington State, and Alaska not eligible for promotion due to Stanford owning the tiebreaker over them. Stanford will finish their conference season by playing Cal and then Boise in the final week of the season. However, if Stanford beats Cal this week, this will guarantee promotion back to the pack for them. A win gives them at worst a 2-loss conference season, and Cal would be the only one that could also achieve 2 losses, which Stanford would hold the tiebreaker over. If Cal were to pull off the win over Stanford, this keeps them alive, but would need to finish their season without losing. They would have Boise State and San Jose State afterwards. For the Big Ten, the relegation danger is still difficult to really nail down, with each team having 3 games to go. There are 5 teams that are in that danger, but realistically, it's a 4-team race with Minnesota, UTSA, UTEP, and Tulsa. The promotion battle is also still too difficult to decide, as there are too many games still to be played. I think with just one more week, we're really going to start to see teams really put themselves in the spotlight in this conference. Now for the American Conference. The relegation battle also is having the same feeling as the Big Ten, with too many games still needed to be played to really decide who is in that relegation battle. However, we can say that UAB and Memphis are the current favorites to be at the bottom. UAB currently has the leg up on Memphis though, having beaten them with their only conference win. For promotion in this conference, realistically, there are only a few teams still fighting. Those teams are Duke, Virginia Tech, and NC State. Duke just beat ECU, which should knock them out. They still have to play Memphis this week, and then we'll finish with Virginia Tech in week 15. Mississippi State is out of the running because they currently can't catch Duke, having lost to them. Virginia Tech still has to play ECU this week, and then, as mentioned, Duke in week 15. A loss would knock them out unless Duke were to lose out and NC State were to lose 2 more games because of their loss to them. NC State has 3 games to finish, being South Carolina, Memphis, and Kentucky. They've beaten Virginia Tech, but they've lost to Duke. Realistically, they need Duke to lose out. So now moving to the last conference in Tier 2, the MAC. Indiana are currently the favorites to be in the relegation zone spot. They finish with Central Michigan, Western Michigan, and then Marshall. The only other team that are in danger of relegation are Central Michigan and Western Michigan, whom both play against Indiana to secure their spots in the MAC. Promotion is impossible to really predict at this point. There's a huge logjam at the top with seven teams that still have a chance at winning that promotion to Tier 1. We are going to need more games to be played before we even get a sniff of who are the favorites. 7 teams are still in the running for promotion in this conference. So that will do it for the top of the football pyramid. We now move ourselves to the bottom in Tier 4, as we know they really drive what happens in Tier 3. So let's talk about this tier. The teams currently sitting with positive independence points are Southern Miss from the Central region, Middle Tennessee State from the Southeast, Old Dominion also from the Southeast, Navy from the Northeast, and Vanderbilt from the Southeast, making that 3 teams from that region. Billis Falls and UNLV are currently sitting with 0 points. Southern Miss just beat Tier 2 BYU, which puts them on 6 points and taking over the top spot in Tier 4. They will finish with number 19 Rice from Tier 3. A win will have them finish with 8 points, and a loss will knock them out of the running for promotion. Middle Tennessee lost to Tier 2 Utah State this week, knocking them off the top line and now sitting with 5 points. They are going to finish with the Tier 1 Miami, Ohio. A win against them will earn them promotion, as no other team will be able to catch them in independence points. A loss won't outright eliminate them from promotion, but would require everyone else in the running to lose either their last game or one of their last games. Old Dominion is sitting with 2 points after beating Tier 4 Nebraska Kearney. They now finished their season with number 13 USC from Tier 1. A loss is going to eliminate them from the promotion battle, and a win will keep them alive. They would need Southern Miss and Middle Tennessee to lose their games, and would also need Navy and Vanderbilt to lose at least one of theirs. Navy is also sitting with 2 points and 2 more games to go. They beat Tier 4 Oswego this week, sending them to 2 points. They will finish their season against Tier 1, for now, Arizona State, and their true rival, Army, from Tier 2. If they want to be promoted, the only way that can happen is if they win these last 2 games. A loss to either one would give them, at best, a tie for first if everyone were to lose their last games, but would still lose that tiebreaker. The last team that have a possibility of being promoted are Vanderbilt, sitting with 1 point at current. They beat Tier 2 Kentucky this week and will finish with their Tier 1 rival Tennessee and then Tier 4 Wyoming. Just like Navy, they need to win the remaining of their games to be promoted and will need a lot of help. Everyone ahead of them will need to lose their final games and would need Navy to just lose 1. This is the only scenario that would see them be promoted. Billis Falls sits with 0 points, but with only Tier 3 Northern Illinois left on their schedule, they will not get enough independence points to catch up. UNLV are also sitting with 0 points, but cannot be promoted because they are ineligible for promotion after being relegated just this last season. So now that we know what Tier 4 has in store for promotion, we can now look at the Tier 3 conferences. First, starting with the Conference USA in the West Division. Rapid City are currently the heavy favorites to win this region. They still have to face Air Force and Nevada, who are still in the running. However, just 1 win by Rapid City will win them the region. Nevada is the only other team that could win the region, though. They beat Air Force, which even if it was to end in a 3-way tiebreaker, they would win that, having beat them and Rapid City. Nevada finishes with Colorado and then Rapid City. If Rapid City were to lose to Air Force this week and Nevada beats Colorado, that meeting in week 14 would decide the region. So now for relegation, we know that no one from Tier 4 are in the running for promotion, so the teams at the bottom have nothing to worry about other than trying to get better for the next season. So now moving to the Central region. Even though Rice lost to Colorado State, the game between them and Northern Illinois will still decide who wins the region. We still have to wait for week 14 for that matchup though. Rice will just drop in the rankings and will most likely lose the best Tier 3 team of all time title with that loss to Colorado State. Relegation is a bit more exciting in this region than the West region. Southern Miss is currently the leader of Tier 4, which puts the teams at the bottom on high alert for being relegated. North Texas are currently the favorites to finish at the bottom of the region. Texas State is the only other team that could finish last. Louisiana should be safe after beating North Texas this week, having the tiebreaker over them. So it's a battle of the Texas schools. For North Texas, they will finish with Texas State and then Arkansas State, and will need to win both of those to just stay alive, and will need Texas State to lose also against Louisiana in week 14. For Texas State, just one win will keep them safe. And now for the final conference in the football pyramid and the final in Tier 3, the Sun Belt. Starting in the Southeast region, as we mentioned last week, USF should be the region champs, having already beaten South Alabama. So we will jump straight to the relegation battle, as there are 3 teams in Tier 4 that could find themselves promoted, which makes it a high likelihood that someone from this region is going to be relegated. Georgia State are currently the favorites to be in that bottom spot. They lost to Virginia this week, which puts them 2 back with 2 games to go. They cannot afford to lose another game. They will finish with Western Kentucky and Troy. Beating Western Kentucky and having Troy lose the rest of their games is the key for Georgia State to stay out of that relegation spot. To continue on with that, Troy just needs 1 win and they will be safe, or they could have Georgia State lose one. They will play against USF and then finish with Georgia State in what could be the battle to avoid relegation. This is not a spot they want to be in this year. It's just too dangerous. And now for the final region, the Northeast region. There are 3 teams that can win this region: Toledo, Ball State, and Bowling Green. Toledo's loss is to Bowling Green, which keeps them still in it. Toledo will now finish with Ball State in week 14. Ball State will also finish their season with that game as well. Bowling Green needs to win out and then force that 3-way tie. They finish with Eastern Michigan and Akron. But realistically, that Ball State-Toledo game holds all the cards for this region. In relegation, Navy has a shot at being promoted from Tier 4. It's a long shot, but Eastern Michigan needs to pay attention and cheer against them from winning. Ohio also needs to be one of the teams cheering against Navy as well. Eastern Michigan will finish with Bowling Green and then with fellow bottom team Ohio. Other than Eastern Michigan in week 14, Ohio finishes with Akron. Just 1 win and an Eastern Michigan loss would keep them safe. That could come as quickly as this upcoming week, or we'll have to force it in week 14 if needed. If Eastern Michigan stays at the bottom and Navy pull it off, this would be a double relegation for them. So that will do it for this week 12 recap of the Promotion and Relegation Show. Be sure to check out the videos coming next with Oswego taking on Louisiana Tech after not pulling it off against Navy, and the Billings video as they take on another pass attacking team in Washington State as we try to continue our unforeseen winning streak. Subscribe if you are new to ensure you don't miss an update, and we will see you again next week after the games for the Week 13 Promotion and Relegation Show.